Have you ever felt something stirring deep inside you that you can't explain? Like a quiet fire you didn't start but can't ignore? That's not anxiety. That's alignment. That's heaven calling your spirit into motion. Welcome to Spiritual Journals, where faith meets clarity and your positive mindset becomes the bridge between who you are and who you were born to be. In this powerful message, you're not just going to hear words, you're going to feel the shift. The peace you've been craving, the direction you've been seeking, the confirmation you've been waiting for. It's all here. This is your moment to awaken to the truth that every thought changing, every desire to withdraw from chaos, every pull towards stillness is not random. It's divine design. You are standing at the edge of transformation, and God is already at work within you. If you stay until the end, you will see your restlessness turn into revelation, your confusion turn into clarity, and your waiting turn into understanding. That's my promise to you. So pause everything else, lean in, and let this word breathe life back into your spirit. If you haven't already, subscribe to Spiritual Journals and turn on the notifications, because together we're spreading God's word and awakening a generation of believers who rise with faith, purpose, and peace. Thank you for being here. You didn't stumble across this by accident. You were sent here on time, for a reason, and heaven is ready to reveal why.
The Divine Rearrangement. There comes a moment in every believer's life when heaven begins to move the furniture of your soul. It starts quietly, almost imperceptibly, in the realm of your thoughts. You wake up one morning and something feels different. The things that once thrilled you no longer hold the same spark. The noise that once comforted you suddenly feels heavy. That's not depression or confusion, beloved. That's a spiritual awakening. It's the whisper of God saying, I'm making room for something new. When God begins His rearrangement, He doesn't start by changing your circumstances. He begins by renewing your mind, because transformation always starts in the unseen. Romans 12:2 reminds us, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Before God shifts your surroundings, He shifts your spirit. He stirs the waters within you, bringing to the surface thoughts, habits, and patterns that can't travel into your next season. He begins to separate what served you from what is now limiting you. It feels uncomfortable, but it's divine construction. He's not tearing you down, He's refining your foundation. Every uneasy feeling is the sound of heaven reordering your priorities. The people who misunderstand you during this phase are not your enemies, they are simply not called to your elevation. God is removing what distracts your destiny, not to leave you empty, but to prepare you for overflow. You're not being punished, you're being positioned. This is the holy chaos of growth. Every stirring in your heart is evidence that heaven has begun its work. Every restless night is an invitation to pray differently, to think differently, to live differently. When the Lord starts whispering new truths into your mind, He's planting seeds of eternity into your daily thoughts. You may feel like something is slipping through your hands, but what's really happening is that heaven is teaching you to release what no longer aligns with who you are becoming. The spiritual awakening inside you is not random, it's a divine appointment. Think about Abram before he became Abraham. God didn't first change his possessions or his surroundings, He changed his name, his identity, the way he thought about himself. He rearranged his understanding of promise before He revealed the promised land. The same is true for you. God begins the process of your breakthrough in the silent corners of your thought life, whispering truths that sound like questions at first, but later become declarations of faith. When God whispers, He's not uncertain. He's awakening your ability to hear differently. That's why some days you feel torn between peace and discomfort. You're being stretched between what was and what's next. The divine rearrangement is like the potter working with clay in Jeremiah 18. The clay has no control over the shape it will take. It simply yields to the hands molding it. The potter may press, spin, and reshape it, not because he's angry, but because he sees the masterpiece hidden within the mud. You are that clay. The pressure you feel is not punishment, it's precision. The spinning is not chaos, it's control. Every turn on the wheel is God saying, "I'm not finished with you yet." When you resist the process, you interrupt the masterpiece. When you surrender, you allow glory to take form. That's why surrender is not weakness, it's the language of trust. God is not asking you to understand everything, He's asking you to remain pliable in His hands. Sometimes the rearrangement means losing interest in what once defined you. Other times it means walking away from places that no longer feed your spirit. It might look like isolation, but it's really insulation. God is wrapping you in His presence to recalibrate your perception. He's removing voices that clutter your faith. He's silencing noise so you can hear the still small voice that Elijah heard in the cave. Not in the earthquake, not in the wind, not in the fire, but in the whisper. That whisper is where the true spiritual awakening happens. It's not loud, it's not dramatic. It's the sacred shift when your spirit recognizes its alignment with heaven. There's beauty in that silence. There's wisdom in that stillness. You may not see the full picture yet, but faith isn't about seeing. It's about trusting that the rearrangement is preparation, not punishment. Remember Joseph. His whole life was one divine rearrangement. From his father's house to the pit, from the pit to the prison, from the prison to the palace. Each shift looked like a setback until heaven revealed the pattern. Every demotion was direction. Every delay was design. And when it was time, God turned what was broken into a blueprint for destiny. The same hand that guided Joseph through disappointment is guiding you now. Your peace feels under attack because peace is the evidence that you're walking in divine rhythm. The enemy only fights what threatens him. The unrest you feel isn't failure, it's friction from your old self resisting your new self. When you start thinking differently, your atmosphere shifts. When your atmosphere shifts, everything around you must choose, align or exit. That's not loss, that's pruning. Jesus said in John 15 that every branch that bears fruit is pruned so it can bear more. You are in your pruning season, not your punishment season. God is cutting away what cannot carry the next level of your calling. And though pruning hurts, it is the highest form of preparation. You may feel like you're being stripped, but what's really happening is that you're being strengthened. God is exchanging your comfort for capacity. He's making room for new oil, new wisdom, new favor. And yes, before new birth comes labor. Before the resurrection came the cross. Before the crown came the crushing. But don't despise the shaking, it's making you unshakable. Right before breakthrough, heaven grows quiet. That silence isn't absence, it's focus. God speaks less because He's working more. Just like a builder who stops talking when the foundation is being poured, heaven is concentrating on your construction. So if you're in that quiet space where nothing seems clear, take heart. The silence is proof that something sacred is forming beneath the surface. The shaking isn't breaking you, it's birthing you. The weight you feel isn't meant to destroy you, it's meant to deliver you. When God rearranges your world, He's not taking things from you, He's taking you to things. This is your spiritual awakening, the moment you realize that divine discomfort is a sign of destiny, not destruction. Heaven is not against you, it's aligning around you. The walls that once felt like confinement are now becoming the womb of your calling. The shaking is not the end, it's the sound of new life being born. So breathe, beloved. Let go of the fear. Let go of the old narratives that no longer fit your new name. God is rewriting your story line by line, with grace as the ink and purpose as the paper. You are being rearranged, but only so that everything within you can finally align with what's waiting ahead. Stay still, stay open, and remember, the potter never wastes a piece of clay.
The strength in stillness. There is a sacred strength in the kind of stillness that only Jesus can teach. The world does not understand it. The world measures power by volume, by noise, by applause. But heaven measures strength by peace. The kind of peace that doesn't need to prove itself. The kind of calm that stands tall when storms rage. That is where Jesus meets you, in the quiet spaces, in the moments when your words have run out, in the pauses between your prayers. The stillness you've been living through was not a punishment, it's a strategy. Jesus knew this well. When the crowd accused him, he didn't shout back. When Pilate questioned him, he stood in silence. Isaiah prophesied it long before, saying, "He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth." His silence wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. It was victory dressed as surrender. Every time you hold your peace, when chaos tries to provoke you, you mirror that same strength. You become like Jesus, not loud, not defensive, but steady. The silence you're walking through isn't empty, it's holy. It's where Jesus does his deepest work. When the noise of the world fades, his whisper becomes clearer. He's teaching you that not every battle requires your voice. Some battles are won on your knees, in secret places where no one claps, but heaven records every tear, every quiet prayer, every time you chose grace over retaliation. You may feel overlooked, but Jesus sees you. He knows how hard it is to stay kind in a cruel world, how heavy it feels to keep forgiving when no one apologizes, how lonely it can be to keep believing when others mock your faith. Yet he smiles upon you because that's what he did. He loved those who betrayed him. He forgave the ones who cursed him. He stood silent before those who sought to destroy him. That is divine restraint. That is heavenly power. When you walk through betrayal and choose peace, you are walking in the footsteps of Jesus. He could have called legions of angels, but he chose to wait. He could have condemned his accusers, but he chose to love them instead. His silence was not defeat. It was the setup for resurrection. The same is true for you. Every time you stay silent in the face of slander, God is setting the stage for a public vindication.
Heaven is not ignoring the whispers spoken against you. While they plot, heaven plans. While they talk, heaven writes. Jesus himself is your advocate, and when he defends, no accusation can stand. True strength is not found in reaction, it's found in restraint. Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you." That peace is not passive, it's powerful. It is the kind of peace that holds your ground when everything around you shakes. It's what allowed Jesus to sleep through the storm while others panicked. That same peace now anchors you. You are not losing by staying still. You are gaining spiritual authority. Your silence is not the absence of power, it's the evidence of it. There's a calmness that confuses the enemy, and you carry that calm. You carry Jesus' stillness, his composure, his quiet confidence. When you stop explaining yourself, heaven starts speaking for you. The stillness you walk in now is training for the stage God is preparing. You may not realize it, but every quiet moment is building your backbone, just as every cross built Jesus' crown. The betrayal didn't break you, it built you. It taught you compassion, it taught you empathy. It taught you to depend on Jesus, not on applause. You've been learning to stand alone without bitterness, to speak softly but carry divine fire in your spirit. Heaven calls that growth. Heaven calls that maturity. Jesus never rushed his process. He waited 3 decades before performing his first miracle.
He waited 3 days before revealing his greatest one. Waiting doesn't mean weakness, it means trust. It means you know who holds the outcome. When God asks you to be silent, He's not denying your defense. He's perfecting your deliverance. You're not called to win arguments. You're called to win souls. That's why Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." Peace doesn't mean pretending nothing hurts. It means believing that what hurts will heal. It means trusting that your quietness is speaking louder in the spirit than any shouting could in the flesh. You see, when Jesus went to the cross, it looked like defeat. But in that silence between his last breath and the stone rolling away, the greatest victory in history was being written. Heaven has a pattern, quiet before glory. And that's where you are right now, in the sacred silence before the resurrection of your purpose. Every delay is divine. Every quiet season is holy. When it feels like nothing is happening, Jesus is orchestrating everything. The silence is not abandonment, it's incubation. You are becoming who you were always meant to be. God is teaching you to hear His heartbeat in the quiet. He's teaching you to respond less and discern more. He's teaching you that not every reaction deserves your energy, because your energy is sacred. Your silence is not wasted, it's working. You may think people forgot your name, but Jesus hasn't. Your prayers are not lost in the air. They are being gathered, pressed, and poured back as favor. That's the kind of multiplication silence produces. The moment you release your need to explain yourself, you give God permission to reveal Himself through you. And when He reveals Himself, the very mouths that spoke against you will declare His goodness. The stillness you walk in is not about hiding, it's about healing. It's where Jesus teaches you endurance, wisdom, and unshakable faith. The world thinks victory comes through shouting louder, but heaven knows victory comes through standing firmer. Jesus didn't need to prove who He was. He simply was. You don't need to prove your worth to those who can't see it. You are enough because He is enough in you. The next time someone mistakes your quietness for weakness, remember the Savior who stood silent in front of His accusers. Remember that His silence shook the gates of hell. Remember that He won the greatest battle not through argument, but through surrender. You carry that same spirit within you, that same calm, that same courage, that same grace. The storms that tried to break you will one day serve as proof that Jesus was with you all along. Every silent tear has been collected. Every moment you wanted to speak but didn't, He has seen it. He's turning that restraint into revelation. He's preparing a table before you in the presence of those who doubted you. When God elevates the quiet ones, it's undeniable. The same hands that were pierced for you are now writing your comeback story. And when it unfolds, no voice will be loud enough to deny that Jesus was the reason for your strength. The world may never understand the power of your stillness, but heaven celebrates it.
The shift of power. There comes a sacred moment in every believer's life when heaven declares enough. It is the divine turning point where the tides of suffering begin to retreat, where the weight of false judgment begins to lift, and where what once drained your spirit now fuels your purpose. This is not a random change, it is the shift of power. When you've walked through long nights of doubt, heartbreak, or injustice, heaven has been watching. Faith has been building quietly in your spirit like an anchor beneath turbulent waves. And now, the season of being misunderstood is transforming into a season of meaning. The power is shifting, not from weakness to strength, but from wounds to wisdom, from pain to purpose, from endurance to elevation. Every manipulator who used your kindness as a weakness will find that their control no longer works, because heaven has sealed your spirit with discernment. Every false narrative spoken about you is being drowned out by the truth of who you really are. You are not a victim, you are a vessel.
And through you, God is releasing something that will heal not only your life, but also the lives of those connected to you. This is the sacred connection between faith and healing, because every wound that once hurt you is now being used as a conduit of restoration. Think of the woman in Mark 5 who pressed through the crowd just to touch the hem of Jesus' garment. She had suffered for years, dismissed by doctors, ignored by society, drained by disappointment. But something in her refused to die. Faith kept whispering, "If I can just touch him, I will be healed." That's the shift we're talking about. The moment when desperation becomes determination, when faith moves from hoping to knowing. When her hand reached Jesus, power shifted. Healing wasn't something she begged for. It was something heaven already prepared. The same power that left Jesus that day is still alive in you. The power that healed her body is the same power realigning your soul right now. Your pain has not been wasted. It has been converted into spiritual currency. Faith that not only believes in healing, but becomes healing for others. The places where you once bled are the same places where others will now be blessed. Faith doesn't just pull you out of the valley, it transforms you into a guide for those still walking through it. When heaven says enough, it's not simply ending the attacks, it's revealing your authority. Authority doesn't look like shouting or demanding. It looks like quiet confidence, unshakable peace, and the ability to stand firm even when the world trembles. That's the kind of authority Jesus carried. He didn't need to prove his power. He simply spoke, and the storm obeyed. That's the kind of faith and healing that heaven is awakening in you now. You are learning that your voice has weight, your presence carries light, and your spirit has authority over chaos. The same faith that healed the blind and raised the dead is breathing through your life, shifting your atmosphere from despair to destiny. For years you've prayed for change, but what God has been doing is changing you, because before he can move through you, he must move within you. Healing begins in the heart before it shows up in the body, and faith is the bridge between the two. Faith doesn't ignore pain, it transforms it. Healing doesn't erase your history, it redeems it. Every tear you cried was a seed. Every sleepless night was a chapter. Every unanswered prayer was preparation for this moment. The shift of power means heaven has decided that you've learned what you needed from the struggle, and now it's time to walk in victory. You may still feel the residue of the storm, but the storm no longer has power over you. You've learned to speak peace like Jesus did on the sea, not because you need proof that he's real, but because you've met him in your pain. That's what faith and healing do. They introduce you to Jesus in a way comfort never could. The cross was not just a symbol of suffering, it was the greatest shift of power in history. What looked like defeat was actually deliverance. When Jesus said, "It is finished," the balance of eternity changed. The wounded became the healed. The sinner became the saved. The broken became the blessed. Every time you rise after being knocked down, that same resurrection power moves in you. The same voice that called Lazarus out of the tomb is calling your spirit out of sorrow. He's saying, "Come forth." The season of silence is over. The grave clothes of shame and fear are falling away. You no longer need to beg for permission to shine. Heaven has endorsed your calling. God has anointed your scars. The same hands that molded galaxies are touching the places that once felt unworthy of love, and they are declaring them whole. Faith and healing are inseparable companions. Faith reaches up, healing reaches down, and they meet where Jesus stands. He doesn't just heal the body, he heals identity. He restores what pain tried to distort. He reminds you that being chosen doesn't mean being comfortable. It means being commissioned. Every test you faced was shaping your testimony. Every loss was a lesson in divine timing. Every no was making space for a greater yes. You are stepping into divine authority, not because you fought harder, but because you believed deeper. The shift of power happens when you stop trying to prove your worth and start walking in it. You're not waiting for validation anymore. You are walking in revelation. Heaven has crowned you with purpose. This is what it looks like when faith matures and healing becomes visible. It's not loud, it's not rushed. It's steady, it's sacred, it's strong, and it touches everything around you. The relationships that once drained you will now draw from your overflow. The places that once broke you will now see your breakthrough. The voice that once trembled with fear will now speak with fire. Because this shift isn't about ego, it's about empowerment. It's about recognizing that faith doesn't make life easy, it makes it possible. Healing doesn't erase your history, it redeems it. Every tear you cried was a seed. Every sleepless night was a chapter. Every unanswered prayer was preparation for this moment. The shift of power means heaven has decided that you've learned what you needed from the struggle, and now it's time to walk in victory. You may still feel the residue of the storm, but the storm no longer has power over you. You've learned to speak peace like Jesus did on the sea, not because you need proof that he's real, but because you've met him in your pain. That's what faith and healing do. They introduce you to Jesus in a way comfort never could. The cross was not just a symbol of suffering, it was the greatest shift of power in history. What looked like defeat was actually deliverance. When Jesus said, "It is finished," the balance of eternity changed. The wounded became the healed. The sinner became the saved. The broken became the blessed. Every time you rise after being knocked down, that same resurrection power moves in you. The same voice that called Lazarus out of the tomb is calling your spirit out of sorrow. He's saying, "Come forth." The season of silence is over. The grave clothes of shame and fear are falling away. You no longer need to beg for permission to shine. Heaven has endorsed your calling. God has anointed your scars. The same hands that molded galaxies are touching the places that once felt unworthy of love, and they are declaring them whole. Faith and healing are inseparable companions. Faith reaches up, healing reaches down, and they meet where Jesus stands. He doesn't just heal the body, he heals identity. He restores what pain tried to distort. He reminds you that being chosen doesn't mean being comfortable, it means being commissioned. Every test you faced was shaping your testimony. Every loss was a lesson in divine timing. Every no was making space for a greater yes. You're stepping into divine authority, not because you fought harder, but because you believed deeper. The shift of power happens when you stop trying to prove your worth and start walking in it. You're not waiting for validation anymore. You are walking in revelation. Heaven has crowned you with purpose. This is what it looks like when faith matures and healing becomes visible. It's not loud, it's not rushed. It's steady, it's sacred, it's strong, and it touches everything around you. The relationships that once drained you will now draw from your overflow. The places that once broke you will now see your breakthrough. The voice that once trembled with fear will now speak with fire. Because this shift isn't about ego, it's about empowerment.
It's about recognizing that faith doesn't make life easy, it makes it possible. Healing doesn't erase the memory, it rewrites the meaning. And now, the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you, restoring, rebuilding, and reviving every hidden place that thought it was finished. The shift of power has begun, and it carries a fragrance of freedom. Heaven has said enough to your battles, enough to your sorrow, enough to your limitations. Now faith has the final word, and healing has the final touch. You are rising not as a survivor, but as a sign. You are the evidence that God still restores, still redeems, still reverses what the enemy tried to destroy. And as you walk forward, others will follow the trail of light behind you, drawn not to your strength, but to the one who gave it. This is your moment to step into divine authority, clothed in faith, covered in healing, and crowned with grace. The power has shifted, and it will never shift back.
The purpose of the gift. Every gift placed within you has purpose written into its design. You were not given what you carry to impress the world, but to impact it. The very talents, insights, and passions that make you unique were never random. They were breathed into you by God as part of a greater plan. Your voice, your compassion, your perseverance, even your scars are sacred instruments for someone else's healing. This is not about popularity, it's about purpose. The gifts you've been nurturing quietly in secret are meant to awaken lives that are still asleep in doubt. Every experience you've endured, every challenge you've overcome, every tear you've shed has been shaping your personal growth into something eternal. You see, the kingdom of God doesn't just grow around you, it grows through you. When you use what you've been given, you become a living bridge between heaven's plan and humanity's need. That's why some of your most painful seasons were actually classrooms. The storms weren't punishments, they were preparation. They taught you empathy so you could comfort others. They taught you discernment so you could guide others. They taught you endurance so you could carry others. The things you thought broke you were actually building the muscles of your spirit. The world might measure success by recognition, but heaven measures it by transformation. Every time you pour into another soul, heaven pours more into you. Every time you give encouragement, heaven multiplies your strength. That's the divine law of exchange. What you release in love returns as abundance. But sometimes we hide what God has placed within us because we fear being misunderstood. You've been there, haven't you? You've dimmed your light so others wouldn't feel small. You've kept your ideas quiet so no one would call you proud. You've silenced your passion to blend in with the crowd. But God didn't design you to fit in. He designed you to stand out. When Jesus said you are the light of the world, he wasn't talking about ego. He was talking about purpose. Light doesn't apologize for shining. It just does what it was created to do: illuminate, reveal, and guide. That's what your personal growth has been all about, learning to shine without shame. The Spirit of God that raised Jesus from the dead lives inside of you. That means resurrection power is not something you're waiting for, it's something you carry. You are not trying to reach the kingdom, you are releasing it every time you walk in love, speak truth, or show kindness where bitterness once lived. The kingdom of God isn't distant, it's within you, alive and active, waiting for expression through your gifts. Every act of compassion, every word of faith, every gesture of hope is a reflection of heaven moving through your humanity. That's why your journey matters. Your story, with all its turns and trials, is the training ground for divine expression. God doesn't waste pain, he repurposes it. What once wounded you will one day become the wisdom that sets someone else free. When Joseph was sold by his brothers, imprisoned and forgotten, it seemed like his purpose was buried. But each setback was a step in his preparation. By the time God elevated him, Joseph had the maturity to say, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." That's what personal growth does. It turns pain into perspective. It transforms confusion into clarity. It takes what hurt you and makes it holy. And that same process is happening within you. You've grown in ways you may not even notice. The way you forgive quicker now. The way you pray deeper. The way you love wiser. That's growth. That's spiritual maturity clothed in everyday grace. You are evolving from reaction to reflection, from fear to faith, from striving to surrender. The world may not see the progress, but heaven celebrates every step. Don't doubt your worth because someone misread your silence.
Some people cannot discern divine development. They mistake quiet confidence for indifference. But you know the truth. Your stillness has been your strength. While others chased validation, you were being refined in the secret place. While others sought attention, you were being entrusted with anointing. The same hands that shaped the stars have been shaping you for a higher calling. You are not ordinary. You are kingdom. The breath of God moves in your lungs. His ideas flow through your creativity. His compassion beats in your heart. That is why the enemy fought so hard to make you doubt your purpose, because he knows your light will ignite others. Your personal growth isn't just your testimony, it's your assignment. Every healed wound becomes a lighthouse. Every lesson learned becomes a lantern. Every moment you refuse to quit becomes a map for someone else to find their way. The greatest calling isn't to stand on stages, it's to stand in love. It's to look at broken people and see potential. It's to look at your own reflection and see redemption. When you live from that awareness, fear loses its grip. The anxiety that once held you captive begins to dissolve because you realize you are not alone in your mission. Heaven is partnering with you. God didn't send you here empty-handed. He equipped you with everything necessary to fulfill your role. The gift isn't what you do, it's who you are when you do it through love. Remember how Jesus multiplied the loaves and fish? He didn't create new resources, he blessed what was already there. That's what he's doing with you. He's taking the little you have, the pieces you thought were insignificant, and he's multiplying them to feed multitudes. Your obedience becomes overflow. Your small steps become seismic shifts in someone else's destiny. This is how purpose blossoms, when you stop waiting for the perfect moment and start moving with what's already in your hands. The gifts inside you are not dormant. They are divine deposits waiting to be withdrawn through faith. The more you use them, the stronger they become. The more you share them, the wider their reach. That's how the kingdom expands, through everyday acts of love, powered by extraordinary grace. And here's the mystery. As you help others heal, you heal too. As you lift others, you rise higher. That's the beauty of divine reciprocity. Heaven never forgets a heart that gives from sincerity. God keeps no record of the applause you missed. He keeps record of the hearts you touched. So keep pouring, keep giving, keep growing. Every time you step into your purpose, darkness loses ground. Every time you choose love over fear, the kingdom advances. You are not just a vessel of gifts. You are a revelation of God's goodness in motion. Your purpose is not to perform, it's to reveal. Your journey is not about perfection, it's about progression. And your personal growth is the evidence that heaven's blueprint is still unfolding through you. The moment you embrace that truth, the fear that once whispered, "You're not enough," will fall silent. Because when you understand the purpose of your gift, you no longer chase significance, you live it.
The revelation of worth. This is your moment of awakening, the moment heaven reminds you of who you truly are. For too long, the world has tried to define you by its shifting standards, by success, by beauty, by approval. But your worth has never been determined by human hands. It was written in eternity, sealed by the blood of Jesus, and confirmed by his resurrection. This is not just encouragement, it's truth, the kind of truth that sets you free when it sinks deep into your heart. You were not created to beg for belonging. You were created to walk in divine confidence. The same God who formed galaxies and painted sunsets also crafted you intentionally with precision and purpose. You were made in his image, which means your worth has never been up for negotiation. This is not about arrogance, it's about awareness. Awareness that you are loved beyond measure, chosen beyond question, and sustained beyond circumstance. That's the heartbeat of every Christian motivational speech that carries power. It's not about inflating your ego, but about awakening your essence. Because when you remember who you are in Christ, you stop living as a reaction to the world and start living as a reflection of heaven. The cross was the final declaration of your value. Jesus didn't die for gold, fame, or power. He died for you. He looked at your mistakes, your fears, your hidden pain, and still said, "You're worth it." That is not conditional love, that is covenant love. And once you grasp that truth, something shifts inside you. You stop striving for approval because you realize you already have it. You stop chasing validation because you know you've already been validated by the one who holds eternity in his hands. The world taught you to earn love, but Jesus taught you to embody it. He didn't say, "Be worthy first, then I'll love you." He said, "While you were still sinners, I loved you." That's the foundation of your worth. Nothing you achieve can increase it, and nothing you lose can diminish it. You don't have to perform for God. You simply have to believe Him. The most powerful Christian motivational speech is the gospel itself. It's heaven's reminder that your identity is not found in what you do, but in who you belong to. You belong to the King, and the child of a king never has to prove they're royal. When you understand this, you stop lowering your light to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold you. You stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. You realize that your light doesn't make others smaller, it gives them permission to rise. You were never the outcast, you were the evidence of divine selection. Rejection was not your end, it was your redirection. Every door that closed was heaven's way of guiding you toward where you truly belong. The people who overlooked you were never meant to recognize your worth, because your validation was never supposed to come from them. The applause of man fades, but the affirmation of God endures forever. When you truly grasp this, something miraculous happens inside you. Fear begins to fade. Anxiety loses its grip. You start walking differently, not in arrogance, but in assurance. You understand that manipulation can't touch you because you no longer need approval to feel secure. You become untouchable in spirit, not because you're unbreakable, but because you know where your strength comes from. It's no longer about proving your worth, it's about protecting your peace. Even your pain becomes holy because you realize it's part of your refining, not your rejection. Every loss, every delay, every betrayal, none of it was wasted. God was using it all to define you, to shape your heart, to deepen your compassion. The same betrayal that wounded you also taught you discernment. The same delay that frustrated you taught you patience. The same loss that broke you taught you to lean on the unshakable love of God. Romans 8:28 still stands true. All things work together for the good of those who love God. That means nothing in your story is wasted. The rejection was redirection. The delay was development. The heartbreak was holy construction. Heaven never wastes tears. They water the soil of your destiny. You see, your awakening isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been. The world calls it reinvention, but heaven calls it revelation. God is not creating a new version of you. He's unveiling the original one, the you that existed before fear, before shame, before the opinions of others clouded your vision. You are rediscovering the version of you that heaven has always known, the bold, radiant, anointed one who walks in grace and truth. When you walk in that awareness, imitation loses its audience. You no longer chase trends because you're anchored in truth. You no longer compare your journey to others because you understand that your lane is sacred. Personal growth in the kingdom isn't about trying to be more like others. It's about becoming more like Christ. That's the secret to unshakable worth. You don't need to compete. You just need to connect. Connect to the source of your strength, the root of your identity, the heart of your Creator. Because the more you dwell in His presence, the clearer your reflection becomes. The enemy tries to make you doubt your worth because he can't destroy it. He whispers lies that sound like logic, like you're not good enough,
You failed too many times. You don't matter anymore. But those are distortions of a defeated voice. The truth is, you are chosen, beloved, and redeemed. When Jesus walked out of the tomb, he didn't just conquer death, he restored your dignity. The resurrection was not only a miracle of life, it was a declaration of value. It was God saying to the world, "My children are worth dying for." That is your foundation. That is your identity. So let this be your awakening moment. The world may still measure worth by status, but heaven measures it by surrender. The world may chase recognition, but heaven rewards resilience. You have survived too much to forget who you are. You had been refined by trials and resurrected by grace. The same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you, which means you carry resurrection power in your everyday walk. You don't have to chase significance, you already carry it. You are heaven's evidence on earth that love wins, that grace restores, and that faith still moves mountains. This is not just another message, it's your personal Christian motivational speech from heaven itself. The Lord is saying, "You are enough because I am enough in you." The voices of doubt are fading, and the sound of destiny is rising. Stand tall, chosen one. Your worth has been settled. You are not defined by your wounds, but by your witness. This awakening is not the end of your journey, it's the unveiling of your identity. The awakening has begun, and with it comes the freedom to finally see yourself the way God has always had, beautifully chosen, deeply loved, eternally valuable, and infinitely worthy.
Chosen ones, as we come to the close of this message, I want you to take a deep breath and recognize something sacred. You've already begun the journey of transformation. What you're feeling right now is not the end of the story, it's the unveiling of who you truly are. You are not broken beyond repair. You are being rebuilt in grace. I know how heavy the world can feel at times, how mental battles can drain your peace. But this is where Christian mental health finds its anchor, in knowing that your mind, your emotions, and your spirit are held by the same hands that shape creation. You're not fighting alone. Heaven is healing you from within. If this word reached your heart, type in the comments, "My awakening has begun." Let that be your declaration today, your way of saying, "I choose peace, I choose healing, I choose to rise." Every word you speak in faith sends light into your future. And before you go, subscribe to Spiritual Journals, where chosen ones walk together in faith, growth, and restoration. Each message is crafted to help you strengthen your mind, renew your heart, and remember your divine worth. May God bless you with calm in your storms, clarity in your thoughts, and courage in your calling. May you walk out of this moment lighter, freer, and more aware that heaven's love surrounds you. This isn't random, this is your revelation.
Your awakening isn't coming, it's already begun.